a lot of people are talking about the O-line and saying, we can't really expect the quarterback to shine against such a bad O-line. I agree that the O-line was terrible. Brock Purdy also threw 3 interceptions before Trent Williams got hurt, is my immediate takeaway. I mean, it was just a total team failure, but my takeaway is that we can criticize the O-line without taking away blame from Brock Purdy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think so.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you agree, but there's a couple, we have the O-line was worse. I hate that everyone is blaming Brock Purdy with this O-line. The O-line is supposed to be 5 men working as one. They must do heavy lifting so the QB and skill guys can shine. Just a lot of questions about the O-line. So I don't know if you have any concerns moving forward with Trent Williams potentially out, or if you take away blame from Brock Purdy because of the O-line, which is what some people are kind of talking about. What was your?
I don't think I'll take away blame from Brock Purdy. I'll just add more to the blame because the offensive line didn't play great. And again, I think that's a part of the reason Purdy was rattled, and also a part of the reason Shanahan was rattled at times with his play calling. He didn't trust the offensive line. There was a time where he called 3 screen passes in a row. The same kind of screen passes. Two of those motion type of screen passes, and then one where I believe he hit he hit McCaffrey for like a short gain. And so, I think that there were certain elements of this game where the offensive line did not play well, especially in the fourth quarter. But I think you can't defer blame from one to the other. I think they both are a part to blame in this case.
And even behind a bad O-line, I think Leroy makes a good point saying Christian McCaffrey had 103 yards, 7.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he did well behind a bad offensive line. I do think he should have ran more, been given more of an opportunity to run. It seemed like they started going to him more towards the end of the game, but
in the second half, in the third quarter, is kind of where he kind of got kicking off. And again, this is something intriguing, right? This is probably a debate that'll go through the week. I don't hate the way the 49ers started because they were moving the ball, throwing the ball. And the reason McCaffrey didn't probably get as many carries as you'd normally expect is not only for that script, but also because you're down 21 points. They didn't run the ball to the amount that they usually do overall. They threw 46 times, ran 18, and ran 14 really with McCaffrey. You don't expect that because they're down 21 points as well. So I think that's another part. You usually probably would see McCaffrey, if this wasn't a blowout, you'd probably see him in the 20s, probably in the 21-20 range, and nobody's complaining then, even with the way the beginning of this game started. And so I think that I think there's arguments to both sides of the debate there.
I completely agree. I just wanted to talk Rick Diaz. Hopefully that's how he says his name, off the ledge. He's saying this is a disgusting game. I will never forget the season was over. Back to the drawing board for 2024. I will say, as kind of doom and gloom as we're being, just because it was a really kind of humiliating game towards the left. I want to say the second half. Once again, the first half, I really had that, like if we would have done a post-game reaction after the first half, I would have been like, I'm really proud of the defense. The skill position players have done really well. Maybe Kyle Shanahan should have called a few more runs, but I'm not even that mad at him. To me, I would have came and been like, Brock Purdy lost his mind and felt uncomfortable, but we've seen him bounce back, and this was just a bad game. The only reason that now I'm like, this is more of a complete team failure is because of that second half. I really feel like this team will bounce back, and I'm going to ask you, instead of saying, because not only is the season not over, I think that they can still get that first seed. I would still have a lot of confidence in them winning their next 2 games. But instead of talking about that, because that's not the goal for the 49ers, that's not their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal is winning the Super Bowl. Did this game change your opinion on their ability to win a Super Bowl?
No, because my initial thought was that they weren't going to win one. I think my opinion is the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my opinion. Yeah, I think my opinion.
Rohan's not here to pick.
No, I mean, let me say this though. Do I think that this changes my outlook on their season? No. Like we said at the beginning of the show, they are the top team in the NFC still. I don't think the NFC is that strong. I think that they were a little overrated coming into the year. They're the top team right now in the NFC. What does the top team usually in the NFC end up doing? They end up making the Super Bowl. They make the Super Bowl. I mean, all of these comments are going to just flip. Especially, I mean, I think if they win next weekend, most of these comments are going to flip. But my personal belief since the beginning of the season is that I don't think they'll win a Super Bowl in 2023. That's just been my belief. I've shared my
Why?
reasons.
See, I feel like I've been like, this is the year to do it.
No,
The NFC is down, the NFL in general is down.
it
Brock
was
Purdy's
the reason that I gave is the reason that I kind of gave at the top of the show. There have been a couple of reasons for me as to why I don't believe they win this year. The number one thing is I haven't seen their ability to close out these
yeah,
important clutch games. And I don't think that it's a problem in the clutch. I just think that we haven't seen them perform when their backs are against the wall pretty much. That's the way that I kind of look at it. When you look at the games where their backs have been against the wall this year, they've lost. They
yeah, they've
haven't pulled them
always
through.
lost whenever
Especially
they've
when you
had
look at the
the
six game winning streak, their backs haven't been against the wall once. I mean, you might talk about maybe they're down or it's a 4-point game or something at halftime. That's not what I consider. When you're down, 10 points, when you're down, something like that, what is your response? How can you do? And even if you lose, what's the response? This week, they didn't have that response. The last few losses, they didn't have that response. And I've kind of sensed that from the beginning of the season. That's why I said prior to the year, I don't think this team is going to win the Super Bowl this year. Now, where I'll say I've changed is my thoughts on the rest of the NFC have changed. My standards for them have lowered. I do think that there are certain teams that I think my standards have lowered for, like the Eagles. But I don't think that they'll win the the Super Bowl this year. They could make it. Again, when I say this, I don't mean no, they're not even making the playoffs. They're not gonna go past the first
yeah.
round of the playoffs. I
I'm
mean
gonna
that they are very likely to make an NFC championship appearance. They might even make the Super Bowl. I just don't expect them to win it. That's kind of my thoughts.
I have to agree. I saw Akash said that, he said, I reiterating basically, I think most fans and people analyzing the 49ers this season kind of agree, and they have that same conclusion. My biggest concern, aside from injuries with the 49ers headed into the playoffs, is how does this team respond to close back and forth, up and down type games where where it's a pressure packed playoff environment or a Super Bowl environment. Especially Purdy, how does he react during these games? They've had opportunities to, show themselves in these games, and in every single one they've lost. It's not like it's been some they've lost, some they've come back from. And when we think about Super Bowl champions, when I think about the reason for me as a 49ers fan, the reason, even though they just lost to the Raiders, the reason that I hope that was correct, the Raiders, right? The reason that the Chiefs still scare me is because we've seen that quarterback and that coach be in the most tumultuous games and came back. We've literally seen them be down by 10 in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl and come back and win. And unfortunately, even in this game, which is a regular season game against the AFC, which technically has really no effect on the 49ers seating in the playoffs or any real pressure aside from just like wanting to cement yourself as a top dog in the NFL, like just to fans, just to prove to yourself that you're on their level. But there's no actual real pressure in this game. And I looked at the 49ers being down and said, there's teams in the NFL that could overcome this. And I've never seen the 49ers do it. And I have hope that they can do it, but I have no proof that they can. And because there's no physical proof, it's hard for me to trust that they can. I can be a fan in the way that I get excited and I'm kind of hanging on every throw and I want them to show me that they can do that, but I have no like actual tangible evidence that they can. And this was once again an opportunity for them to do it. Even if they didn't come back and win, they could have came back and made this like within one possession. They could have, tried. They could have shown, like I said, I think there was about 6 or 7 minutes left, and they could have been higher tempo trying to work down the field. And instead, they kind of accepted defeat. And it just feels like they can have an entire fourth quarter if they're down by 2 touchdowns. It feels like the team just kind of gives up. I will say